Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena. Welcome, Shipping Podcast lovers. Welcome to this bonus episode of the Shipping Podcast. I have never released a bonus episode before, but now I have been affected by hybrids. On July 31st, 2015, I started by releasing my first episode. So today is a 2-year anniversary with the Shipping Podcast. I thought that it was time to do something different and fun. So I have turned the tables. I have asked some of my friends to interview me about what I have learned so far. After having released 64 episodes of the Shipping Podcast, I can share with you that it takes 2 years, 64 guests, and some knowledge to reach more than 85,000 downloads in total. Or maybe a more relevant figure that you can relate to, approximately 5,000 downloads per month in 155 countries. These are figures that I am extremely proud of. It shows the glory of the digital media, but also how democratic the new age of digital communication is. I have started a communication channel on my own. I have no backing up by any media house. I am a nobody. I'm just a passionate shipping nerd who wanted more people to understand the business that I am in. I have gained a lot of knowledge, a completely new network, and the satisfaction of having started a new channel for communicating the passion for the shipping industry that every one of my guests have. Now there is 65 hours of maritime professionals' voices in cyberspace. 2 years ago there was none. For this bonus episode, celebrating my 2-year anniversary, I asked you, my listeners, for questions and or comments about the podcast. But I got no feedback. 0. Nil responses, which was a bit disappointing. It didn't make me happy at all. I thought that all of the people who always ask me things when I meet them in person would take the opportunity, or the other ones that I yet haven't had the pleasure of meeting, but no one responded. For a while there I was really unhappy and had no idea how to, or even if to, make a special episode for my anniversary. After having thought about it for a while, I decided to bring my microphone on my trip to the south of Spain, where I was going to meet some of my Vista friends. They have been following me on my journey, and some of them are even my most hardcore fans. Consuelo Rivera, who is a ship agent in Huelva in Spain. She is a hardcore fan of the Shipping Podcast. She has listened to every episode and followed me closely. She was willing to put some questions to me. These are the ones I can let you hear.
Well, Lena, let me start with congratulating you for this second year of Postcatch, and to say that I'm proud to be one of your interviewees 2 years ago in Istanbul. I would like to comment that you accompany me when I am vacuuming the floors at home. It relaxes me, and at the same time it entertains me and instructs me. I have a question for you, Lena. How do you see the future?
Well, the immediate future, it's a lot of hard work still. But you mean for shipping or
yes.
for... Well, I think we are in the middle of this paradigm, and I think things are starting to change. It's like, that snowball. You have to get it up to the top, and then it's going to roll by itself. Mm-hmm. So we're still pushing it a little bit, but it's very close now. I meet so many people that are pushing that snowball.
I love when you interview the new generations, the ones with the ideas and the ones that will take care of the future. I love that very much.
Yeah, me too. They give me energy and they give me a new perspective.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And I get a lot of emails from young people, students within the maritime industry who has just started, and they say it's good to have a perspective, the helicopter perspective of things. And young people outside the shipping industry who says, oh, there's so many interesting jobs.
Yes, they encourage them to join us.
Which was the entire purpose of this.
You're making it.
Well, we'll have to see. But I can see signs of at least more things happening now than before.
Mm-hmm. Even if you feel you are alone, believe me, we are all there listening to you.
Thank you, Consuelo. Thank you. I know you are. And I feel grateful. And I am so happy that people reach out to me and tell me what they think about it.
We are the ones grateful to you for what you are bringing us to our homes.
Thank you. Thank you, Consuelo. I knew I could depend on you to add some humor to this. When I started this project, I had no idea who would be interested in listening. I presumed that maybe I would have to force my closest family and friends. Now it has taken off in a way I would never ever had expected. And it's so much fun. It really is. However, I had my eyes set on the people outside the shipping industry. I wanted them to understand what a cool business we are in, to raise public awareness. But I realized that most of the downloads are taking place in so-called maritime hubs around the globe. So it is the people within the shipping community who already has got the bug that are listening. I'm not complaining. Obviously, I filled a void for the maritime community, a possibility to listen to the peers, or the idols, or maybe even the competitors. On my journey to Spain, I was accompanied by Kathy Stansel. She's the CEO of Intertanko, which is an organization that is gathering more than 200 independent tanker owners. And she was also a guest in episode 34. And this is her interview with me.
So, Lena, I'm trying to think back to the day when you came to my office and made my podcast. That was the very first time I ever engaged with the medium. I'd done a little bit of research, so I'd listened to one or two of the ones you'd done before. So I knew that it was for you also a journey, and I was somewhere on that journey. I was just one step. So I guess what I'm really interested in is, what did you learn? What's the most important thing? If you think back to the very beginning, what jumps at you?
I had no idea that so few people know what a podcast is.
Mm-hmm.
And that they don't know that it is available on their mobile.
Right.
So I have handled more than 100 mobiles since I started.
Mm-hmm.
And people come to me and they ask me, oh, I hear that you're doing something I can hear on my mobile. Can you please help me?
Mm-hmm.
And more things that have struck me is that people are so generous. They're generous with their time, and a lot of them have opinions within our industry.
That's true. I think you have to in this industry.
Yes, I think so too. But it's interesting.
You're talking about mobiles, and it's true, actually. I wasn't aware before I did the podcast with you that you could actually download it. And I don't know if I ever told you the story, but your podcast actually saved my sanity on a number of flight delays, where the only resource I had to keep myself calm and not get annoyed was to listen to a podcast, and then I just didn't care. So for me, it's a really interesting thing. But when you set out to do these, the purpose was probably not entertainment, was it?
No, the purpose was to make the shipping industry more well-known by people who doesn't know it. Because I think there is so much in our industry that is so good, and not a lot of people knows about it.
And is it possible to actually look at your statistics and say how much of your listening group comes from within and how much comes from outside?
No, it's not like Google Analytics, for instance, where you can actually see how old people are, if they are men or females or whatever. You can't do that with podcasting. However, you can see where is that podcast downloaded. For instance, I can see London area, or I can see on the countryside of the UK.
From the IP address or how?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's still 20% of the episodes are downloaded by Swedes, because I nag on them to download it, I think. And then it's the United States, and then it's the UK. And I would say that the US is soon going to surpass Sweden. And that is downloaded in, for instance, New York, Washington, San Francisco, which is interesting.
That is interesting. I guess you have shipping clusters.
Yes. So I can see the maritime hubs around the world. So I can see that it's downloaded in Singapore, in Hong Kong, and China is now coming. So it's spreading in China.
How do you interact with your audience? I mean, do they write to you? Do they email you?
Yes. I usually say my email address, or they tweet me, find me in social media. I mean, I'm on Facebook and I'm on Twitter as Shipping Podcast. But I get a lot of emails, especially from young people. And either they are within the industry and they ask me questions, or they are from the outside and they ask me questions. I am approached by a lot of people who say, "Oh, I got such a great idea for the shipping industry, but I don't know who to talk to because it's so closed. I don't know where to start." And everyone I talk to say, yeah, we know about that. But I didn't know about that. And maybe there was an idea that we missed out because we didn't speak to them.
When you interviewed me, and I think you do that with everyone, you asked me who else would I want to hear. How long's your list now?
Well, I got a target list. It's very long. But I have actually managed to get some people who has been wished for. I have interviewed. You were one of them who were wished for. So I interviewed you. But I would say I got at least 50 on my list
To do. Okay.
And it adds on all the time, because people also share with me that kind of information. They send me an email to say, "You must talk to this one. You need to see this person." And that is interesting, I think.
How do you connect the dots? Because I guess they're all different.
I have the same 5 questions to everyone. And depending on the answer, the talk moves around a little bit. But the core questions are the same. But, well, I don't know. I think I go on my gut feeling. And when I started out by just interviewing people nearby, because that was easy for me. Then I went to conferences, and then I realized that people do not find the time to talk to me at a conference because they want to network and meet other people. So they can't take 40 minutes to go away and do some podcast with me. So now I have changed my strategy. So I travel to one city and I stay there for 3 days, and I try to meet as many people as I can. And then I got a target list of many people in that city. So because it's expensive to travel.
Yeah.
So I have to do that when the occasion arises.
So is there a way of sponsoring your travel?
Yeah, of course. I have sponsors on per episode, and I'm trying to build a platform for more organizations who realizes that this is a way to do some marketing for an industry to work together. I'm here to spread the word, the good word about shipping.
One other question I had was whether you'd ever consider having more than one person in the same podcast. Have you ever done that?
No, I haven't. It will take a little bit more of a technique from my side. And I'm not ready to do that yet. And in a way, I also think I've got the feedback that people who listen think that they are on the 3rd chair in that room.
That's a good point, actually.
And that is also one of the reasons why I didn't. A lot of podcasters, they do interviews via Skype. But that means that you're not in the same room.
And you can probably hear it, can't you?
Well, with the technique nowadays, it's almost like if you were in the same room, but it's not the same. You can easily get distracted on reading emails or something like that when you're not in the...
That would be rude.
Well, people do that as well. So I decided not to do it, because if I would interview you via Skype, preferably you would be recording at your end and send that audio file to me for me to do some post-production. And the people that I want to meet would never ever know how to do that.
Okay.
But I can buy more equipment and have like a panel of people talking. But it also means that you need to think about that you are not talking
over each other and things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you think about your own wish list, I mean, you've got a list of people you want to interview, but is there anyone that you really want but you haven't managed to get?
So far, I've only had one who said no.
Oh.
Of all the people that I have asked.
Okay.
Some people have said, not now, but I will return to you.
Yeah.
But I haven't asked the ones on my top target list yet. So
Okay.
we'll see.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. I hope it's not a no. Did they ever explain why?
Well, the person who has said no, he will always say no to me, because that's the way our relationship is.
Okay. So it's a personal thing.
It's a personal thing.
Then maybe it's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
Okay.
I will win that one. He will be on the podcast, I promise you.
Okay. I'll listen out for that one. I'm wondering about language, because I guess neither you nor I have English as a first language. And I think the beauty of the podcast, as at least the ones I've listened to, is that you have such a broad international spectrum, and it reflects our industry, because while English is our lingua franca in work, there's so many people that are not native speakers. And I wonder, have you considered doing one in Swedish? Or, I mean, you speak a number of languages. You could do it in other languages than English.
Well, when I started, it would have been easier for me to do this in Swedish. But it wouldn't have been such an international success then.
No, because the impact wouldn't have been there.
No, and also the Swedish maritime cluster is shrinking, so it wouldn't have been that many listeners to build on.
Yeah.
And I think, I can see that people are interested in listening to ship owners. And one of the first ones I did was with Carl-Johan Hagman at Stena. And he's still the top one. And I've done 60 more. Of course, he was at the beginning, so a lot of people are downloading. Because what I have realized, and what I do myself, is that if I listen to a podcast and I start to like it, I go back to start from the beginning to listen to all of them. So I can see that in the statistics as well, that people are starting to listen at one episode, and then they think, wow, I need to go back and listen to all of them. And as every podcaster says, the first 10 are terrible when it comes to audio, because I have learned as I worked my way through this. But then again, they are good in another way, because the first one I did was with the captain on board the Maersk McKinney Møller. And I think that's a great one.
Yeah.
And I would like more seagoing people.
One of the things that struck me about the podcast is how much more you can convey than a newspaper article.
Yes.
And simply by intonation, by the way people speak, by it makes such a difference.
Yes, it does. And I'm inside someone's head.
Yeah.
And for me, it's so interesting, because I meet people now who says, I'm talking to you in real life. And I feel like, yes.
You're the voice.
So that's a new thing for me, which I didn't really expect to happen. But that's a new thing, yeah.
So you're the Lena. You're not the Siri, you're the Lena. It's an honor to know you.
Maybe I need to work on that.
Brilliant. You should franchise yourself. You should have a Tagalog Lena.
Yeah. You see?
And a Japanese Lena.
Yeah, a lot of people tell me to do a network of podcasts. I will welcome more podcasts within the industry, because, as you say, it's such a good media to... I mean, you could have an internal one if you want to. You can have your own app, which is secluded and no one else can listen to it. You don't have to put it on iTunes for everyone to be able to download it. So you can use it in different ways. But it's audio. It's not something you read. You get the impression in a completely different way.
Yeah. Well, I hope that the next 60 are as interesting as the first.
It depends on the guests. It's my sea stars.
Well, if I can think of anybody else I can put you away, I should put you away. But I think you've probably done most of the ones that I instinctively thought of in the first 60. So, and that's the interesting thing, because there's lots of them that I haven't even thought about, which is also what makes it interesting.
I got a few ones up my sleeve.
Look forward to it.
Thank you, Cathy, for the chat. I think you had many relevant questions and also a few new ones that I haven't heard before. My gut feeling tells me that my current audience is my peers in the shipping industry. They don't admit that when asked, but I think they are. And a lot of young people. Members of the digital generation who already listens to podcasts, as I discussed with Cathy, but I cannot be sure. Another of my friends happened to be on the same trip with me this summer. To be honest, she was the one who organized the entire thing. That is Karin Orsel, the CEO of the MF Shipping Group and the president of Vista International still. And here are her questions to me.
So, Lena, I was one of your, not your first interviews, but I was very lucky that you shared your thought of creating a shipping podcast with me, I think now almost 3 years ago. And how do you look back at that time?
Well, I think I learn new things every day again. For a while I didn't. For a while I felt like, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. And then I started with this, which is completely different to what I've done before. And I've learned so many new things, and I can see things in a different perspective. I have got a lot of new friends within the podcasting industry, which I never knew before. And I think I'm happy because I get to sit down and speak to all these people, and they are generous with their time to share what they know and give me the time to talk to them. So I feel grateful.
Do you feel, after doing, what is it now, 65 podcasts, do you feel you've interviewed it all, or are there specific gaps which you, or people which you think, they are on my wish list, and is there a way we could assist you in getting those people from your wish list?
Yeah, I started with the low-hanging fruits, the ones close to me. And attending Vista conferences, of course, I met a lot of our mutual friends, which also was generous and had the patience with me interviewing them. Lately, I think I have gone more and more into the innovation side. I want to show both the shipping world and others that there are so many exciting things happening within the shipping industry. So it's an exciting industry to be in. When I started, I had more the view that I wanted to show people outside the industry who we were and that we are exciting. And I think now it has changed a little bit, especially since I have seen through the statistics that the podcast is downloaded in maritime hubs, which means that it's maritime people who are listening to it. And that has given me the thought that maybe I should show the forerunners and what they are doing to inspire others. But of course I got a target list. I can see that people want to listen to ship owners. I haven't had any ports yet, so I would like to have some ports. I need to have some ship brokers. I haven't had that. To listen to them, what is at the top of their agenda at the moment. I would like to interview Sir Richard Branson, who's now coming into shipping and is doing it in his own way, of course. That would be interesting. I love to talk to the 3rd, 4th or 5th generation of ship owners because they have inherited a company. And what is that like? How does that feel? I would like to go to the Far East and speak to the people there because I think it's narrow-minded of me to sit in Sweden and only interview people from the part of the world where I am from. And everyone keeps inviting me to go to the Far East, so that's next on my agenda.
Because I was actually also thinking a little bit further ahead. I think your podcast has opened the eyes of many people. And as you said, not only you, but a lot of people are learning a lot by listening to your podcast, and also learn a lot about the different aspects of our industry. What was the whole idea behind it? But I can also imagine that there comes a time when you might be changing not your subject from the shipping podcast, but maybe start up a new podcast in a different kind of industry. Is that something you have thought of?
Yes, I could start a podcast on any subject now. And before you start, you need to know what is the purpose of it. Why do I do this? And now I know the technical side of a podcast and how to get that distributed and to people to listen to it. So I could do it in any kind of industry.
But you're not doing it. And what I think is, and it's also because we know each other a little bit better, that some, even the big companies, think it's a question of copying and pasting. That amazes me, because I think you have to build up your own brand in that respect. But besides, I would say, your target list, what's there for the future for you? How do you see your future? And let me be more specific, because I think you're being asked more and more also to speak at conferences. And that's linked not only to the podcast, but also to, because you have an opinion about our industry.
Yeah, sometimes I have too many opinions, I think. Well, at the moment I'm working on a program to be, anyone can do what I do if they know how to do it. To be active in social media, to promote the shipping industry in channels that there are not at the moment. And it's a technique, and it's the way you do it. Some people are good at it naturally, and other people have to learn it. And it's here to stay. So I think communicating through digital channels is something very many people has to learn. So that is what I'm trying to set up a plan for doing that. And you can reach so far if you know just a little bit of it.
And I think you're talking about companies now, but what I find, and taking this very personal, I would say rather challenging, is that even my generation, and I'm not even 50, but that the digital world and all the new social media tools are that fast that it's very difficult for individuals like myself or companies to keep even track of that. And that's why I'm at times very impressed by, you are one of the first which will be saying, okay, this is a new tool, have a look at it, we should use it. But I can imagine that even thinking about giving lessons to bigger groups, how to start working with this might be something to think of. Or maybe you already mean that, because I think my generation, and even I would say people up till their 30s, are not used to work. I mean, we have your day job, you have your mobile phone, and on your mobile phone you have so many apps which are so difficult to handle at the same time. That might be actually a great idea.
Yeah, and I think you can't shy away from it. You have to have a view on it, and you have to be present. And then you don't have to do everything. Of course, you should choose how much of your time you would like to spend on it. But you can't delegate it to someone else. I mean, some people give it to the communications department to have it look like if I am, let's say I am the CEO. Mm-hmm. It should look like if I am tweeting or Facebooking or whatever. It doesn't take long for people who knows what they are doing to see through that. And then it's a fake. It's not true. So it's better to be yourself and to be online, but not to pretend that you're someone else.
If I hear you correctly say, okay, it's better to post less.
Yes.
Instead of hiring somebody else to do it on your behalf. I mean, the company behalf is a different thing, but not you as an individual. No, it makes perfect sense.
It's also part of a business intelligence to keep updated. And I think that is why I have been finding these innovative people and the people who are on top of things, the forerunners, because that is part of a business intelligence as well.
Let me end with this. I can only say lots of respect for what you're doing. You're only a couple of years older than me. And I really appreciate the way you also teach us how to look in a different way to our own industry, because I think that's what's lacking. We're a very closed community and not very willing to share. And I think that's one of the things, and I'm sure you agree with that, that we need to change, otherwise our future
will die.
Yes. Now we will die at some stage, but maybe a little bit earlier than we intend to.
I agree.
Thank you, Lena.
Thank you. Thank you, Karin. I think we got a little bit off track there, talking about other things that I do for a living. But that might also be of interest for my audience. I don't know. Every Wednesday, I attend a mastermind meeting online. And that has been going on for more than a year now, I think. I meet 3 other cool women who are also podcasting. And we discuss our wins of the week and what challenges that lay ahead of us. I invited them to ask me a question for my anniversary episode. And here is what Jennifer Decker-Ebeling came up with.
Hi, Lena. This is Jennifer from the Still Growing Gardening podcast. I love your show, and my question for you is, what are your top 5 favorite episodes?
Well, Jennifer, I've been working within the shipping industry for more than 20 years, and I have never met a boring person. Everyone that I meet have a story to tell, because everyone has an exciting job that almost no one has ever heard about before. Now I enable the rest of the world to hear about that. Jennifer's question about which episode is my favorite, I'm not quite sure if I want to answer that one, since I don't like to play favorite. But I promised I would answer any question, so here is my list of the top 5 episodes and why. Episode 35 with Kate Adamson. This is where we clicked. I immediately realized that this is someone I would love to work together with. Episode 44 with Hannah van Hemmen. Oh, this is a young woman to fall in love with, and someone said that I would if I interviewed her. And they were right. Number 6 with Richard Watson. He's a professor. This was like getting a private lesson about maritime informatics and how it would be possible to digitalize the maritime industry. Richard was the one that opened my eyes. Episode 62 with Deanna MacDonald. I tend to always love the latest of my interviews, but this episode I'm sure I will go back to and listen again and again. Deanna explained blockchain to me in such a simple way that even I could understand it. That is what I love the most, when I learn new things. My 5th favorite has to be number 25 with Karin Orsel, because I could ask her questions I would normally not ask a ship owner. Since she is a dear friend of mine and has supported the entire adventure of starting a podcast in an industry where no one knows what that is. I can see from the back end through the statistics which episodes that are the most downloaded ones. And that is the top list of my listeners, I think. Episode 3 with Carl-Johan Hagman at Stena. It's in the top, with 2,100 downloads, which must count as a well-invested hour from his side. Top 2 is episode 52 with Lars Säverström, which is no big surprise to me. It's an interesting interview, but also GAC, or GAC as it's called outside Sweden, decided to publish the episode in all their social media channels, which also helped it to get into the top 3 when counting downloads after 45 days, which is the way the podcasting industry counts downloads and compare. If you just knew what impact the sharing in other social channel has, this is something I wish more companies would do. The content of the podcasts are showing all sides of the maritime industry. Who would not benefit from having that on their website or in their social media channels? Look at the Swedish club, who has added a landing page, which they call Voices from the Industry, and where they have put my web player. They think that their members benefit from listening to the Shipping Podcast. Number 3, with 1,977 downloads, is my very first episode with Captain Nils V. Pedersen on board the Maersk Mc-Kinney Møller when she called in Gothenburg. This doesn't surprise me at all either. It's interesting to listen to a master mariner, and he was the captain of the world's largest container ship at that time. In addition to that, he is the number 1 episode when listeners fall in love with one episode of the Shipping Podcast and goes back and listen to the entire back catalog. That is what I do when I find a new podcast that I fall in love with. Let me take this opportunity to say thank you to all my guests. They have been so generous with their time and patient with me and my questions. I have met some amazing people I probably wouldn't have met if I hadn't started this podcast. Another one of my mastermind buddies, Lorraine Sanders, has also sent me a question. And by sent, I mean she used the app called Voxer and spoke into her mobile, and then I could download it from my side of that app. If you want to contact me, if you want to talk to me, use the Voxer app. You will find me in there.
Hi, Lena. It's Lorraine with the Spirit of 608 podcast, and I wanted to send you a message and say congratulations on your anniversary. This is so cool. It's a huge milestone. I know you've worked really hard to get there, and I have 2 questions for you. The first is, I know you're really interested in innovation, and you and I both are, and I've always really admired and respected that about you. And I would love to know that in the shipping industry, what do you think, if you could just wave a magic wand, what would need to happen right now to really open the floodgates to more innovation in shipping and in your industry in general? If you could change one thing right now, what would it be? And my second question for you is more of a podcasty one. You've been doing this for a while. You're one of very few podcasters in your industry. And I'd like to know how people who listen to your show and are fans of your show, what could they do to support you and the show and to help it grow so that it can create more change in the industry that you know and care so much about? All right. Congrats again. And I can't wait to hear this special episode once it's live.
The question about innovation, Lorraine. I think what needs to happen now is that the forerunners starts to communicate how the people working in the maritime industry can benefit from the digital transformation. As long as we only keep talking about the cool technical innovations, but not how those innovations can make the jobs more interesting, then the rest of the people, the skeptical ones, would have a possibility to obstruct the development that we can see now. The second question on how my audience could help me. Well, there are so many ways my listeners could help me. Just by retweeting my tweets, sharing my posts from the Facebook page, or directly from the website. That is probably the easiest way, and the only thing it would take is time. Giving the Shipping Podcast a review on iTunes is always welcome. But that might be tricky if you're not used to iTunes. But maybe that is too much to wish for, and now I hear from Apple that come November it will all be redone, so maybe the ratings and reviews are outdated anyway, so don't spend any time on that one. After having done this for 2 years, I realized that I want to do more of it. It's so much fun, and I think actually I'm doing a favor to the entire maritime community. You probably realize that I have put both time and money into getting this far with my project. But for me to continue and develop this project in a sustainable way, and since I want to be as cool as other podcasters, I have set up a Patreon page, which you will find under patreon.com/shippingpodcast. That is where listeners can contribute monetarily to the Shipping Podcast. I haven't yet figured out what I can offer in return, but I'm sure I will think of something. At the moment, it's just a page. I need my holiday, and when I come back, I'm going to develop it more. I have another podcast pal, which is closer to me, and that is Per-Olof Arnes, who I interviewed a couple of episodes ago. Since I met him when I was thinking about this episode, I asked him if he could put a question to me, and I understand where his head is at the moment.
Hi, this is Per-Olof Arnes from Logistikpodden, and congratulations, Lena, on a successful 2 years of your podcast. And I'm wondering, how do you market your podcast? Because this is quite a new field for advertising and marketing for most companies. How do you manage to convince a traditional marketing department that podcasting is actually the future?
Well, I've got so much to say about marketing, Per-Olof. For marketing Per-Olof, I have only used social media channels for my podcast, and that is Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I'm quite active, and I jump from platform to platform depending on what I want to share. But right now I'm into Insta stories on Instagram. So if you want to see a little bit about the behind the scenes, go there. I feel that I can be a little bit more personal on Instagram than on the other platforms. In addition to these online media channels, lately I have attracted some interest from printed media. Not so much as from online media, but on the other hand, there are not so many shipping-focused online media, and Splash 24/7 has given me more room than I could ever ask for. But I think Per-Olof is asking for information about how to attract sponsors and advertisers to this new channel for communication. To be frank, I can say that I haven't. The sponsors that I have worked with are companies who believes in me and see what I want to achieve. And for that, I'm so grateful. I have done a lot of research on online advertising and audio specifically. The listeners of a podcast are very loyal. They have made that active choice to listen to the program time and time again. And they usually listen through the entire episode. In the US, where podcasting is so much bigger than in Sweden, where I live, there is a going rate, or what you would call it in our industry, based on per 1,000 downloads, which is very close to zero. So that is not a way forward when you want to disrupt the industry by introducing a new media channel. I must honestly say that I am amazed how much this industry still relies on advertising in printed media. Or if they think that they are modern, maybe they spend money on website banners. So after having spent lots of time analyzing how this industry is spending their money, or not, on advertising, I came to the conclusion that I want to build a platform of companies that is ready to support a disruptive startup in the maritime industry, led and owned by a woman in her best age, focusing on the future of shipping. I'm still looking. Because when I try to discuss this with the people with money and power, I'm referred to either the communications department of the company or a media buyer. And I haven't found many of those who are crystal clear about the value of supporting a podcast by advertising in it. I think the lack of communication and digital awareness comes down to core values of this industry. Communication and information, like insurance and human resources, are still looked upon as soft values and has not reached into the strategic discussions. And therefore it's not discussed at the management level. And that is where I need to reach to be successful in my endeavors. Me starting a podcast and making myself available to a wider audience has given me the opportunity to communicate with so many people about my passion. I get emails, messages through LinkedIn, and I'm also approached by people in real life, by people who doesn't have a clue about the shipping industry, asking me questions, pitching ideas, seeking contact with innovative ideas for the industry that I work in. In a way, I would think that those are the people that the digitally transformed industry wants to get in contact with. I think I would have to put this bonus episode to bed now. I could go on, but I don't think you want to hear any more of it. But celebrate with me in social media. Show your appreciation. Or put the questions that you never got around to send to me. I am in all social media channels. I love this, and I will be back with a new episode in 2 weeks' time. Until then, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.